Hey, everybody. So, welcome to the second week of Time on the Terrain. And this is a weekly review of what we've seen in the marketplace. And of course, right now, it's all about in Australia, this sort of knife edge that we're on with some of our states returning to lockdown, certainly in the big metro areas. Other states really just kind of hanging in there and trying to manage their own security, their own safety, and their own economies as best they can. And as we've done before, and we will frequently do moving forward, comparing that this week specifically to America. And I've spent some time in Sydney this week. I've been in front of 3 clients or in the middle of the week. And there was a strong resonant theme that came from those as well around some of the specific challenges in the local domestic marketplace in Sydney and in Australia more broadly. And at this stage, I'm going to run for about 10 minutes. So hang with me. Hope this is going to be of interest. And I think the specific theme that I'd like to examine as I look at all of this is really sort of risk aversion in looking at how you overcome challenges. And I'm going to start by just recounting a couple of elements of the conversation I had with Michael Bungay-Stanier for Better World Leaders, which was a conversation last week that was broadcast late last night in Australia. And that conversation was essentially around curiosity and the role that curiosity plays in power and control and in failure and learning. And I think, as always, if you're thinking about buying a particular car, you start seeing that car everywhere. Ever since I had that conversation with Michael, and it's been going round and round and round in my brain, I'm now referencing certain elements of it in a lot of these conversations that I've been having and taking, sort of a curiosity filter as I'm looking at what's going on in the marketplace and in the world. So in particular, we've had a couple of bids knocked back, not because of essentially anything that we've done or any, I think, real criticism of our capability ultimately, but it's come down to risk aversion and a relationship-based decision. We will use someone that we've used before, that we know, that we trust, but specifically, we account less risk to moving forward with this person than we do to engaging with you guys, with 4i, with a business, an outfit that we haven't worked with before. And I get that. Okay, I understand it. There is always, I think, a reassurance to we had a good outcome before, we know what we need now. But my question really is, and this is where the curiosity bit lies, is what you needed before what you need now? Is that actually an accurate risk assessment? Because if you're basing your requirement now on a previous experience and perhaps a previous outcome, well, show me somebody who's worked in an environment like this before. Right, the criteria in the pandemic and navigating it completely different to the GFC, completely different to the dot-com bust, different to any sort of significant disruptive event that we've seen before. So I think really sort of previous experience, I would contend, is less relevant these days. And primarily what you want to look at is diversity of ideation and a curiosity-driven approach, and essentially research delivers the data that curiosity can be applied to. You can then adaptively figure out what the best solution is. Just simply rolling out what you've done before, frankly, good luck with that, okay? Because all of the variables are different now. So that's just a bit of a ramble, but a bit of a thought that really came out of this conversation with Michael. So the clients that I'm seeing succeed today, they are the adaptable, they are the curious ones. Okay, so the specific issue that several of our clients are now suffering from is supply chain delays. I mean, this is being spoken about not really enough, but somewhat. We're certainly starting to see some media reporting about anticipated price rises in grocery and so on because of supply chain delays. But this is really impacting massively. We've been living for, let's just say, 30 years, arguably 40 years, with this just-in-time approach to supply chain management. And that's increasingly been driven right down to the finest margin possible. And unfortunately, with all of the delays and the constraints, those are really being stretched to the point that businesses who we are working with, who are in essential services, are rapidly running towards a point where they're going to run out of inventory. They literally will not have the items on the shelves to deliver the essential services because those supply chains have got no fat in them at all. And it's, first, second, third, fourth, etc. goes on. It's those layers of supply chain interrelationship that are all being strained right now. And I had a call from a former client of mine who's now running a big business in the US. He's based in Houston. He's about to move to New York. We had a long conversation this morning around really just, sorry, it wasn't this morning, it was yesterday morning, around what exactly is going on in America. And we've just seen results released this morning that I was messaging him about, that they've just released. The US have just released the worst financial numbers for 100 years, apart from a couple of blips in the 30s. But over a sustained period of time, it's basically as bad as anybody's seen it that's alive today, for the most part. So Australia's big trading partners are China and America. We've got a big problem coming. And locally, there's a real issue in that a lot of demand side activity is not going to be able to be sustained because of these issues with the supply chain. These are just very active, prominent thoughts in my mind based on conversations with clients this week. So where's the good news? I think the good news, certainly for us this week, has been that people are recognizing that their employees are what's going to get them through this. I've had a series of conversations this week with CEOs, CFOs, EGMs, essentially saying we need to invest in our people like we never have before. And that specifically does not mean we need to spend more money than we ever had before. We need to do more blanket measures, more volume. It's not that. It's we need to invest in our people in a way that we have never needed to before, by really understanding who are the drivers of our businesses, who are the leaders at all levels of our businesses that are actually going to get us through this, and how do we invest in them to sustain them and develop them and improve them in a way which is going to be reciprocally beneficial for them, beneficial for us as an entity. 3 conversations essentially along exactly those lines this week. And that for me is very reassuring, because that, yes, from a self-interested perspective, because this is the work that I do, but that is exactly the right approach. Who are your key people? Who are the handful, dozen, 50 people that if you invest in, they're going to get your organization through this? That is the question I'd like you to consider today. And that is the curiosity that I'd like you to apply. Give that some thought. And if you're so inclined, reach out to me. I'd love to help you, or at least help you enact that curiosity and walk down that road and understand who those people are. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.